appreciate your attendance as we have another press conference here that's in anticipation of tomorrow's Brickyard Grand Prix, Grand Am, and the Rolex Series historic debut here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We wanted to bring in two true Indianapolis Motor Speedway veterans here. Eliseo Salazar, he's going to co-drive the number 64 TRG Porsche GT3. And Paul Tracy, he's going to co-drive the number 77 M&M Snack Mix Speedway Ford Dallara for Doran Racing. And Eliseo, he's a veteran of F1, kart, and IndyCar. Finished third here in the 2000 Indy 500. Won an IndyCar race back in '97 at Vegas, and this is his third Rolex Series start this year. And Paul, 2003 Champ Car World Series champion, back in '02 here for the Indy 500. Finished as the runner-up in one of the most controversial finishes in the 500's history. Altogether, 31 career IndyCar and Champ Car victories for Paul. Maybe we'll start with an opener from each of you, and then we'll take some questions. Paul, you first.
Well, it's good to be here at Indy. Obviously, I didn't run this year's Indy 500, but and when you get a chance to run here in anything, it's a great opportunity. So I want to thank Doran Racing and M&M's Mars Company for sponsoring us for being here this weekend. And it's an exciting weekend for Grand Am. It's you know, from coming here from the test, it's going to be extremely exciting race. There'll be a lot of beating and banging and passing, and it's going to be a fun racetrack for the Grand Am cars.
Elsa?
Thank you. Well, I'd say it's an understatement to say that every time you come here to this center of racing, you know, it's unbelievable. As you mentioned, I've raced 6 times here, you know, twice started on the front row. I'm finishing 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, so I've had good success here. And this is a very special year because I did a round of the World Rally Championship in Argentina, and I believe I became the first driver to do Formula One, IndyCar, Le Mans, Dakar, and WRC. So I couldn't miss the chance to run backwards, you know, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Thanks for those openers. We'll take some questions for these gentlemen. Have a question, raise your hand. We'll come around for wireless. Name and affiliation, please.
John DeGee, Speed.com. Paul, we've seen you in Grand Am for, I think, 3 or 4 races this year. What's the chances of we seeing you back here for maybe a full season in 2013?
Well, I mean, we're working hard on that. We've had, with Doran Racing this year, I got kind of called the week before the 24 Hours of Daytona, and he had told me, look, I'd like you to come drive there. And, you know, I don't have a full season package. We're running last year's car, so we're not going to be the most competitive out there, but I've been able to secure a relationship with the Mars Group through the sponsorships we've had on the car so far this year with Combos, which is a Mars brand, and now M&M's this weekend. We've entertained some people from Mars at all the races. So, you know, hopefully that's a building block for his plans to build a new car over the winter, Kevin. Put a new car on track for the 24-hour, and hopefully we can secure a full season of sponsorship and be out there full year next year.
Paul, you tested here in that car, even though it's a year old. How was the car on this track?
It wasn't too bad. You know, obviously the new car is a better car. It's been more refined. You know, the downforce numbers on the new car versus the older car is about 18% more downforce on the new car versus the old car. So that doesn't really affect the car as much here because you basically peel everything off the car that you can to get down the straightaways here. So we're not, you know, a place like Daytona or here where you have such long straightaways and such slow corners, you're not really relying on the downforce level that you would at Watkins Glen per se. So we tested here. The track was, the infield is very, very slippery. You're not running a lot of downforce on the car. The car's very trimmed out for the long straightaway. So I think we can be pretty close time-wise to the new car. Obviously, you know, we're not going to put it on pole by any means, but I think the gap between the two cars is much closer.
Dennis Krause, Motorsports Minute. Paul, over this side. Given what you talked about for the possibilities of next year, is that where you see your career headed now as sports cars, and have you closed the book on open wheel cars?
Well, I think, for me, I have to be realistic. Since the merger from Champ Car to the IRL, I was able to compete somewhat every year, a partial season, 5 to 7 races a year. I haven't done any this year, and they have a new car in the IRL, so I'm a complete year behind. So I've really focused my attention on trying to go sports car racing. I love the Grand Am racing. I've always enjoyed doing it. I think it's very competitive. And that's not to say I dislike ALMS, but there's a big separation in the ALMS between, the front prototypes, the Audis and the other cars. So you're really competing here on a much level playing field, very much like NASCAR is. And there's a lot of good drivers and a lot of good action on the track and good racing. So I enjoy that a lot, and I feel that when I come here, I've got a good chance to do well. So this is where my focus has been, is try to put together a program to run in Grand Am.
Dave Coleman, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Paul, you were here at Indy when Indy was the only race at Indy. Maybe that helped the mystique. I know Chip was in a little bit ago and said everything that's come on since has sort of added to the thing. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, obviously, I raced here a long time. When I first started, my first race was in '91, and Indy was the 500 was the only race that they had. So, it takes a lot of capital to keep this place the way it is, and only having one race a year probably doesn't generate the kind of money that it takes for the Speedway Corporation to keep the level that this track needs to be at, to be the pinnacle of the world. So they've brought in other races. I think they've brought in more excitement for the fans. Now, the fans can come to Indianapolis and see any type of racing they want, road racing, stock cars, Indy cars, MotoGP. So I think it's great. I think it's a great track. It's one of the best facilities in the world, and why not use it for what it's intended for, and that's for all forms of motorsport.
Paul, one of your old rivals, Sebastian Bourdais, will be racing against you tomorrow. Have you talked to him at all about Grand Am? I asked him in Toronto. He said no. He looked for you in Watkins Glen but couldn't find you.
Yeah, I didn't see him there, but whoever he was driving with spun me out at Watkins Glen in the first corner.
Maybe it was
so
him. No?
I've got my mark notched off for that car this weekend. But all kidding aside, I didn't get a chance to see him. It's just, these races get pretty hectic. You get so wrapped up in what you're trying to do, and especially tomorrow, we got one practice qualify race all in one day. So there's really not a lot of time to chit-chat and socialize with people.
Paul, John Bryant from Nazareth Race Cam. We've known each other for years. Compare this track, Indianapolis, racing-wise, to Millville, New Jersey's track down in South Jersey, please.
Well, I mean, the track, the infields are fairly similar to each other. The track in New Jersey was narrow and quite slippery, and it had a lot of slow-speed hairpins and kind of switchbacks. And this track is on the infield part of the track is pretty similar. It's pretty slippery, and it's got a lot of like first gear hairpins and kind of corners where you're switching back on yourself. And then it leads out onto the oval, and then that's a totally different thing where you're coming through turn 1 backwards, and the car is sliding a little bit and dancing, and you're already up to 165 miles an hour, going in the DP car going through the corner backwards. So it's a fun track. It's I think it's going to be a great track to race on. Traffic and timing things is going to be important because it's so slippery in the infield. You can't really get offline to get around GT cars. It's pretty tricky. So timing things and making your pass the right way is going to be important in the race.